Did you have a place, maybe as a child, that you weren't allowed to go? Well, that's what we're talking about in today's video. Well, I remember growing up in southern West Virginia that I'm not going to name towns and I'm not going to name neighborhoods or whatever, but there were a couple places that even after I got my driver's license and could kind of take myself wherever I needed to go or wanted to go, there were still a couple neighborhoods, a couple of towns that for whatever reason, like my parents did not want me to go, and I knew like I don't need to go there. Mm-hmm. Like I'm not going to be welcome there, or that there's just a certain reputation that neighborhood had, right? Mm-hmm. Well, today's story. Welcome, by the way, to another video in our 50 stories from the New Testament that everybody should know. And today's actually finds us kind of in a place like that. So kind of setting up the story, the geography of Jesus's ministry really bounces back and forth between Galilee to the north and Judea, Jerusalem, particularly to the south. And Jesus, if you follow his trajectory, he's always going back and forth. He's traveling around the Sea of Galilee, hitting these different cities. And sometimes the Sea of Galilee will be called like Lake Gennesaret or the Sea of Tiberias. There's a city on the Sea of Galilee called Tiberias. And so you see him going back and forth, Sea of Galilee, Jerusalem or Judea, Sea of Galilee. And to get there, in between those two was this region called Samaria. And Samaria has an interesting history. So when the northern kingdom in the Old Testament, after Israel splits into northern kingdom, southern kingdom, the northern kingdom gets taken by the Assyrians. And when that happens, they send a bunch of people away, but some people stay in the land, and they kind of mix in with the Assyrian crowd. And this ethnic group called the Samaritans form out of that time period. And so they're still living there in that region. So the Jewish people did not like the Samaritans. They saw them like as an outside foreign presence in their land. And so most people would travel around Samaria to get there, the long way. But one of the most popular stories in all of the New Testament happens in Samaria. So why don't you should tell us that story today.
So Jesus and his the guys he's gathered with him are walking, traveling like they do, and he tells them, they decide, like, let's go into get some food. We need to go get some food, get some supplies for our travels. And so Jesus is at this well, which we find out through his conversation that's about to happen, that this is Jacob's well. And so it's actually an important landmark. And he meets this woman who's getting water there. And he greets her, and she's like, "Why are you talking to me?" Because of what you were just talking about. Like, they're not supposed to be having a conversation. He's supposed to avoid her, all of that. And so she says, I don't understand why you're talking to me. So Jesus asks her to get a drink from the well for him. He's thirsty. Give me a drink. It's hot, all that. And as they're going into this conversation that he's having with her, they're talking about water, but they're not really talking about, water. And Jesus is talking about living water, which is how he describes himself. Like, I'm living water. I give living water. So Jesus says, if you knew who I was, you would ask me for water, because I have living water. And she's like, are you saying that you're greater than Jacob? And she's not really understanding what he's getting at. And he's saying, yes, because my water, the living water that I give you, with that you would never be thirsty again. You would never thirst again. And she's like, well, then yes, I do. I want to experience that living water. And he says, okay, well, go get your husband. And she says, well, actually, I don't have a husband. And he says, I know, because you've been married 5 times, and the husband or the man that you live with is not your husband. And so she realizes in this moment, he's just told her the story of her life. Like, he has just reached in and he spoke into probably the darkest, most difficult thing that she, experiences in her life about herself. And he reaches in and just speaks into that. And then he introduces himself as, I am the Messiah. I'm the Messiah. And so the disciples come back and they're like, why is he talking to her? Like, we're not supposed to do that. We don't really understand. She runs off and she actually becomes like the first one to go tell about something Jesus has done in their life, and so she runs back into the city to go tell everybody that she meets, I just met this man and he told me everything about myself,
Yeah, it's awesome, and it's such a good story. And I love the fact that Jesus, Jesus engages people right where they're at. He doesn't wait for them to. It sounds cliche, but he doesn't wait for them to get their life together or clean up and all that. He engages where they are, and it also shows us, right. And I think this is an important thing, especially in the time we're living in now. Jesus is not restrained by social barriers. He doesn't care about social norms. I mean, he does, but he will break through that at any given moment. And he's totally fine with being associated with people that don't look anything like him, or don't act anything like him, or don't believe anything like. They have an intense theological discussion about the proper place to worship. And Jesus is like, I'm okay being associated with you. I'm okay being seen with you. I'm okay letting my disciples come and see that I'm engaging you in conversation. That he's not worried about guilt by association. We saw this in the last story. He's hanging with Matthew and the tax collectors. He gets accused of being a drunk and a glutton because of the kind of people he eats dinner with. It's just I love that about Jesus.
Well, and he hadn't revealed his ministry or his mission to large groups of people yet. I mean, this was all still kind of like ramping up to those stories, and so he reveals who he is to her. He's like, I am. This moment calls for this, and she needs to know this, and he speaks into that.
It's awesome. I've got a fun fact.
Okay,
love the fun facts. This blew my mind. There are still Samaritans alive today.
Wow.
Like the ethnic group of Samaritans, there's not a lot. There's only about 800 Samaritans alive today, and but they still sacrifice. They still go to Mount Gerizim for worship, and they live in like there's a town close to Tel Aviv, and then so there's like 4 big families really of Samaritans, and some live near Tel Aviv and some live in the Palestinian territory. In the West Bank, but there's still an ethnic group of Samaritans alive today. That blew my mind. So anyway, love this story. Love this story. It's such a powerful example of just grace and truth melting together. So good. So well, thank you for watching today. Thank you for clicking play, and man, it'd be awesome if you would subscribe if you haven't already. Click the notification bell and click like and share on this video, and let your friends know, especially if you've got somebody who's kind of new to the Bible. Invite them to watch this playlist together with you, and let it be a conversation starter as we journey through the New Testament together. So awesome. Love doing this. Thank you for joining us today. We'll see you next time.